In the 21st century, the United States is contending with a growing population, and one of the fastest growing states in the early 21st century is California. Despite this, it contains the most national parks of any US state, including Alaska. Today we're going to take a look at two national parks that contain two fascinating wonders, some of the largest trees on Earth, and a spectacular canyon, both begging to be photographed. Let's look at some Sierra Nevada treasures, Sequoia and Kings Canyon National Parks. Although these two parks are right next to each other, their establishment as national parks came decades apart. Starting with the earlier of the two, Sequoia National Park is the nation's second oldest national park, beating Yosemite for the spot by a mere 6 days. However, what lies within the park is much older. Sequoia trees, while neither the tallest, those are the redwoods, nor the oldest, those being the bristlecone pines, trees in the world, do have one claim to fame, being the largest. The massive behemoths are native only to the Sierra Nevada mountains that both parks reside in, and the largest of the trees, the General Sherman tree, is over 50,000 cubic feet in size. And although they are not the tallest or oldest trees, they can still reach as tall as a 26-story building and can live up to 3,400 years. It was these qualities that appealed to the many different people who populated the area, starting with American Indian tribes like the Yokuts and Paiutes, who inhabited the area for a couple hundred years, living off the land and wandering through the massive trees that would eventually become Sequoia and Kings Canyon. Interestingly, the park's namesake, Sequoia, is named after a notable American Indian, but not one native to the area. Sequoia the Park, spelled Sequoia, is most likely named for Sequoia, spelled Sequoyah, a Cherokee Indian who was instrumental in creating an official language for his nation in the southeast in the early 1800s. The Sequoia species would not be seen by European folk until the mid-1800s, with a party led by Joseph R. Walker, good name as he was probably doing a lot of walking, discovering the Sequoia groves to the north in the future Yosemite National Park. Unfortunately, as is the tale with most valuable resources, wealth flashed before many eyes of early businessmen in the Sierra Nevadas, and several logging operations cut down massive sequoia forests before conservationists like John Muir stepped in and advocated for the creation of a national park to protect the ancient trees. And so, in 1890, Sequoia, Yosemite, and General Grant National Parks were established to preserve the sequoias. General Grant National Park, which was responsible for the protection of the tree of the same name, which was the second largest sequoia after the above-mentioned General Sherman, eventually expanded to include the nearby Kings Canyon, which was named after the river that runs through it, El Rio de los Santos Reyes, or the River of Holy Kings by Gabriel Moraga, which was eventually changed to the Kings River. That's a lot of royalty. The park was officially dubbed Kings Canyon National Park half a century after its creation, done so by President Franklin Roosevelt in 1940. One final story about the park's history comes from Charles Young, a former slave who eventually got into the prestigious military academy at West Point, and who served as the acting superintendent for the two parks in the summer of 1903, and who, along with an African-American military regiment nicknamed the Buffalo Soldiers, helped to eliminate the threat of poachers in the parks, as well as constructing the first major road through the park to allow park visitors to travel by wagon for the first time to see the sequoias. Their efforts are remembered today as one of the most inspiring stories about African Americans in America's national parks, and shows how anyone can help others appreciate the national beauty of the United States regardless of race. Turning our attention to the locales you can visit at the two parks, all journeys to the park should start at one of the many visitor centers scattered across the area, including the Foothills Visitor Center a few miles east of the town of Three Rivers, the Lodgepole Center, located near the famous General Sherman tree, the Kings Canyon Center located in Grant Grove near the General Grant tree, and the Cedar Grove Center, the hub for backcountry exploration in Kings Canyon. As we've mentioned a few times already, the large sequoias are the star attractions of both parks, and short trails lead to most of the largest trees, but other trails take hikers past stunning waterfalls, massive granite rocks, and forests of ponderosa pines. At Cedar Grove, several paths lead into the fascinating wonder that is Kings Canyon, with a couple trails even connecting to the John Muir and Pacific Crest Trails, some of the longest and most infamous trails along the west coast. Of course, there is one other feature in Sequoia National Park that is well known among hikers, and is one of the most fearsome trails in the entire contiguous US, Mount Whitney. Named after famed geologist Josiah Whitney, this 14,505-foot mountain is the highest point in the lower 48 states, ironically enough located less than 100 miles away from the lowest point in Death Valley National Park, and requires a 22-mile trail starting from the town of Whitney Portal on the eastern side of the park to summit the peak. Only the most experienced hikers should even consider attempting this trail, and you must win a lottery to even get a permit to hike the trail. There are plenty of videos on YouTube about this awesome hike, so check some of them out as well if you're interested in possibly doing this trail. Throughout the parks, many animals can be seen in the several different environments that change based on altitude. At the high alpine ranges, pikas and marmots can be seen, as well as several small bird species. If you're lucky, maybe you'll catch a glimpse of the rare Sierra Nevada bighorn sheep, which is currently undergoing a restoration effort to repopulate the animal within the park. In lower elevated areas, black bears, deer, mountain lions, and squirrels roam the coniferous forest, searching for berries or other animals to feed themselves or their young. Finally, in the foothill regions of the park, one can find foxes, bobcats, and skunks that wind their way among the many types of trees, like oaks and sycamores that populate the landscape. Sequoia and Kings Canyon National Park are some of America's oldest and finest national parks. They're home to some of the most inspiring people and wildlife on the planet. Anyone who is in East Central California certainly ought to take a visit and discover these natural wonders for themselves. This has been RSC Adventures covering Kings Canyon and Sequoia National Parks briefly.